One question I have just received is that how long do you suppose will the latter days last? Could it be more than a million years? The answer is that Allah knows best how long the latter days would last, right? We do have um, a concept of 7,000 year cycles that the promised Messiah alayhi salam has talked about. And he has talked about how there are 7,000 year cycles in which we see a process take place, uh, different prophets come, and then that period comes to an end, and a new era starts. A new period of 7,000 years starts. Now, how many of these 7,000 year cycles have passed before us? We do not know. When will exactly be the next 7,000 year cycle? We do not know for precisely. We can estimate when that would be. And what does that mean? A new cycle starting. Does that mean that this cycle has to be completely destroyed before a new cycle has to start? That also we do not know. Because in his book, Tofa Golaraviya, which is, I don't believe it's been translated yet, in that book, the Promised Messiah alayhi salam writes that at the end of this 7,000 year cycle, when the new cycle starts, we cannot say whether it will mean the destruction of this cycle, that meaning the destruction of most people on earth at that time, or it would only mark a new beginning, in the sense that a huge change occurs and a new cycle starts. What that change would mean, Allah knows best. Now, I mentioned the 7,000 year cycle. We are in the last 1,000 years of our 7,000 year cycle. How do we determine that? We determine that from the Quran. The Quran mentions in Surah Al Asr, let me show you as I speak about this. On alislam.org, again, you can go to the Quran section and you can scroll down to the section on to the surah of Al Asr. And in Surah Al Asr, right, the in Arabic we have, it should be mentioned somewhere here. See a collective note on this whole surah under verse 4. So we go to verse 4 and they have a collective note. And in the English, I don't see this discussion that much. But if you go into the commentary of this surah, you in the Urdu language, if you can read, you can find perhaps more details about this. Or maybe in the opening of this verse, in the introduction of this, sorry, in the introduction of the surah, right, there is some mention of this surah referring to this cycle. But basically, based on Surah Al Asr, the promised Messiah alayhi salam has stated that it refers to, or if in Arabic we have every letter corresponds to a number. So Surah Al Asr helps us calculate the time up to the period up to the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is about 5,000 or a little over 5,000. So up to the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, more than 5,000 years of this cycle had passed. And after the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, another 1,400 years have passed. So we are basically in the last 1,000 years of this current cycle. And there's a long discussion of how these numbers are calculated in the commentary of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. If you can read Urdu, I would recommend reading the commentary of Surah Al Asr, and also in Tafsir Kabir, which is also in Urdu by Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad, Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu anhu. He has also discussed this. And one point in that place he has mentioned is that, and he has done some more calculations. And he has stated that it is not known exactly how this cycle would end, or it is possible that many thousands of years would be added to this cycle. So Allah knows best how long it would be, and what these calculations are, and how they would be calculated in the eyes of God, what they mean. But the reason why we talk about the 7,000 year cycles is that the promised Messiah alayhi salam has stated that Allah brings about a period of guidance and a period of misguidance. So there's a long, so when a prophet comes, it ushers in an era of guidance, and then people become corrupt after a while, and there's a period of misguidance. So guidance and misguidance go through different phases. And he has also talked about how in some cases there is a 1000 year period of guidance, followed by a 1000 year period of misguidance. In general terms, when we say misguidance, it doesn't mean every person on the planet, on earth, becomes misguided. And similarly, when we say it's a period of guidance, it doesn't mean that every person on earth, in the world, has become guided. So it just means that, generally speaking, there's a period of guidance and then there's a period of misguidance. And all these discussions actually are there in commentary of Surah Al Asr. I couldn't see that in the English commentary, but in some of the books of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, he has discussed this at length. And I can share references if you require. If you can also email me at askanimam at alislam.org. I'm not sure if I had that on my screen here. I don't think I did. So askanimam at alislam.org, and maybe I can share further references. For now, I can only uh, suggest the Urdu commentary, but if you cannot read Urdu, then I can share some English references or resources as well. So, what I will do in the last few moments here is see if we can search for the question that was just asked about the 7,000 year cycle, and see if there is. Yes, so there is another book, Testimony of the Holy Quran, Shahadatul Quran, which also mentions this. So if I look for the term 7,000, maybe, yes, our Prophet, so the promised Messiah alayhi Islam writes, our Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was declared the Prophet of the latter days, and 1300 years have passed since the appearance of the Prophet of latter days. Now ponder over the hadith in which the 7 steps of the pulpit seen in a dream were interpreted to mean the 7,000 years of this world. So he's referencing a hadith as well that mentions 7,000 years. Think carefully whether or not, according to that hadith, this is the age for the appearance of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. So there's that as well. Then let's see if there's any other reference to 7,000. So that was the only reference to 7,000 in this book. And then we have Faith Matters program, where they discuss the 7,000 years, right? Uh, there's a commentary of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani Rizal Anhu, where this is again mentioned. This is another reference, right? I mentioned this is an article, Noah's Flood. And then Brahine Ahmadiyya Part 5. This also has this discussion. So we can quickly search maybe 7,000. The life of the world, the promised Messiah alayhi writes, starting from his Adam alayhi salam, is 7,000 years, as inferred from Quranic verses, of which 6,000 have elapsed until our own time, as may be reckoned by the numerical value. So this is what I was talking about, the numerical value of the letters of Surah Al-Asr. In Arabic, in the Arabic language, every letter has a number associated with it. So the numerical value of the letters of Surah Al Asr bring the period to 5,000, which was the period of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then when we add another 1,400 years to that, we are in we are in a period beyond 6,000 years. So he says we are now in the seventh millennium according to the lunar calculation, and the promised Messiah who was to be raised at the end of the sixth millennium has already appeared. And then there's another aspect to this, and I will conclude my program today with this. He says God created Adam on the sixth day, which is Friday, at the time of Asr. This is what is established by the Torah, Quran, and the Hadith. And God has ordained 7 days for mankind. And as against these days, one day of God spans 1,000 years. So there's another verse of the Holy Quran which says this, that one day of God is 1,000 years. It is inferred on this basis that the age of the world, starting from Adam, is 7,000 years, and the sixth millennium, which corresponds to the sixth day, is a day for the advent of the second Adam, which is the promised Messiah. That is, it is destined that in the sixth millennium, the spirit of righteousness would disappear from the world and people would become extremely heedless and irreligious. Then will the promised Messiah appear to reestablish man's spiritual dispensation. So there is this discussion, and you can read more about this in Brahine Ahmadiyya, part 5, page 348-49, right? And there's further discussion of Qiyamah, 7,000 years, and how it would occur at the end of the 7,000 year cycle. All these discussions are there, right? And it goes on into this discussion further. Okay, so this is a good reference for you uh, to read and to consult. In Brahini Ahmadiyya, I think this discussion is quite extensive. So have a look at that, and hopefully that would answer your question.